be bringing Steve up for his presentation.
Vocal variety. Vocal variety. Why do you want to worry about vocal variety?
You're excited.
What is your voice? Your voice is your contact with your audience. Sure, they can see you move, but movement doesn't convey a message. The words convey a message. And how do you get the words and the message over? Vocalization. But I'm sure you've seen and been to places where the person who was talking in a very monotonous voice, and he says the same thing all the time, and before you know it, your head is hitting the table. Monotonous. Monotone. You know what monotone is? Mono is one, tone is voice. Sound. Monotone. You don't want to speak in a monotone. Glenn did go in a little bit too. I was going to hit him because he's going in my area. Volume. Or if they can't hear you, I've actually lost contests that I was in because I didn't raise my voice loud enough. All right. There are many, 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 many things that affect your vocal variety, and there are many, many things that you can do to change it. I'm going to give you just three. I'm going into that wonderful power of three. Right? PVS. I don't mean a TV station, I mean PVS. So what do we mean by PVS? We mean PVS. Pitch, volume, speed. Now, what's this bit about pitch? Well, you know, when you're leading in something, you're trying to get your audience, leading them towards a conclusion. You could raise your voice, your pitch a little bit, and then when you get down in there and you're ready to pronounce and make your point, then you go down and bring your voice down. You change the pitch. Nobody likes to be bored. Change your pitch. It keeps them involved. Second one, volume. I think you kind of noticed that I changed my volume a little bit. There was one speech I gave where I told a story. I like to tell stories. I told a story about this near-do-well in Ireland who was traveling around, and he wound up going up on one of the magic mountains. And there was a hole in the ground. Down that hole is where the good people lived. The fairies. The good people that call them in Ireland, you know. And he went and he looked at that hole. He knows how the voice came away. And all of a sudden he threw a rock down to see if he could. All of a sudden, boom! The rock came up, hit him in the head, and he rolled all the way down the hill. What I did there, that technique, lowered my voice. As I lowered my voice, I listened more and more because you don't listen. And then I bring the voice way up. Again, variety. You're changing things, you're moving around. Speed. You've heard those commercials on the radio for certain enhancement products, and then you don't even know what they're saying. If you speak too rapidly, they will not understand what you're saying. But you don't want to speak too slowly either. You have to kind of experiment with this. Some cultures, the people naturally talk more quickly. My wife is Irish. The Irish speak very quickly. The English tend to a little as well. I think the Near Eastern people, the Far Eastern people, from India, from Pakistan, they speak rapidly too. Keep your voice moderately slow. Remember the speeches of Martin Luther King. Now he kept his voice, so he didn't rush it. You rushed it. You knew what he was saying. He had a rhythm. It draws the audience in. There's times to be loud, there's times to be soft, quiet. But here's another thing that Glenn touched on. It also comes into speed. I'm talking about the pause. I love this one example. Jack Benny. You all remember Jack Benny. Well, at least most of you do. At one point on his TV show, Jack is walking along down the street. He comes up to the edge of an alley, and a hoodlum comes out with a gun, sticks a gun on his ribs, and says, "Your money or your life." Notice he used a low voice now. Your money or your life? Well, I'm thinking. Pause. All great humorists use the pause. And you can use the pause because when you ask someone a question, why would you want to pause? To let them think of the answer. That's what I just did. I let you think of the answer a little bit. But if you rush past that question onto your next topic, they don't get a chance to think about it. So that's the pause. Very simple. PBS. Just think of the TV, of the radio station, only it's not quite PBS. PBS. Pitch, volume, and speed. That's all I've got.
That's good.
Do you have any questions? See, I was so good that everybody understood everything. You know, they always save the best for last, right?
I have a question just in general.
Okay.
I think all of us in the room would agree the biggest challenge we have is that imagine giving a speech to people who have heard the speech for 10 years, 20 years, and it's the same material over and over again. And so, there is a challenge to it, but I know this group is up to challenges. And so, any thoughts on, that dynamic of it? Because, we're kind of locked into what we have to cover.
Right.
And
I've got an idea for you right here.
Excellent.
The very first time someone in our club got up to give what we call table talks, that's an extemporaneous experience where you don't know what you're going to say until you're up there. She just can't do it and left. All right, so why do I bring that up? Because later on, that is a perfect thing for her to say to her audience. What I'm getting at is as you repeat this stuff over and over again, stick in little snippets of your own experience. People love it when they hear about you.
Or engage them to share a snippet.
Just self-deprecating humor. The first time I started to tell people about this, I put my hand on the table and break the rhythm a little bit. Bring in something new and unexpected. Just a little story. It doesn't have to go on and on.
If it's the same stuff over and over, and theoretically they know it, cover your slide or hide your slide and say, okay, what's the next one? Have them tell you what it is.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
That's another hour. Sure.
That's fine, but for the ones that have been here before and bring the candy out and throw in the candy. It brings them into that because maybe they might say what it is, and when you reveal it, guess what? It wasn't what you thought it was. Maybe they think they know it, but they don't.
Just come up with something that breaks the rhythm, something unexpected.
Another technique that you can do, I had to give a presentation to Nationwide Insurance. Nationwide is very good on their acronyms. I went through the acronyms in about a minute and a half. And you had people sitting back in the audience going, yep, I remember that. Yeah, I remember that one too. Yep, I remember. Because they were doing the regional offices and they had call row, no row, East Row, West Row, and I said Sapporo and kept right on going. And I go, wait, Sapporo is the Japanese restaurant. So you can do something like that.
Okay.
And do you find
We got a little bit
is that
more.
how much time I have left?
No, go ahead,
That's the first one.
Do you find that it would be better? One of the greatest challenges is so much information
Right.
in so little time.
Steve. That's your challenge. That really is your challenge.
And so, but I'm thinking if it bores people to death and they don't get anything from it, if we take maybe a little bit of extra time for a story here or there, and all of a sudden, at least they're engaged, that's probably better than trying to blow through something and they don't get it. I mean, we can
Right.
say, hey, we did it. but
Well,
they
and I
didn't
still
get it.
like the idea of setting up people who've heard it so many times as somehow making them valuable to the process, letting your new people know who they are and who each other are, so that they can kind of, all of a sudden it's not just, it's the same old stuff, but all of a sudden now I have a responsibility to this person to share this information, so I need to be paying attention because I can be a resource. If they can be set up as a resource and other people can look at them as a resource, that might be a good way to manage that.
Steve has added something the last few elections, which the entire audience we teach to is well aware of. We grade them
That's good.
based on their performance. How do you get their mind away from I'm going to be graded to concentrate on what you're trying to present to them, whether it be in a PowerPoint or mini group sessions, so that they know we're working hard for them to be successful.
Right.
You're going to be graded. We're going to bust our chops to try to make sure you pass this course.
Can you just tell them that?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they feel that. I don't know, can you make a Jeopardy game out of it? Some of it? I mean, just make a game, have like a quiz show with some of the information
Let me make
before
2
the
points
test.
here. I wanted to say one thing. If you tell a story or tell something, it has to be to the point. It can't be off point.
Right.
It's got to come to
Everything has to be related.
whatever it is. I want to go back to that, so you've got to do that. Number 2, tell them you're not grading them. Or if they don't participate, they get a bad grade.
Well, that is said too in a very nice way. Have to participate with us or you won't be able to get through.
One last thing, because I'm running out of time too. One last thing as far as presenting stuff. Now that was a double word that something to catch each other, Toastmasters. When you say a word twice, adds. If you have any kind of flexibility in how you present it, one of the things that I just recently learned from a course that I'm listening to on a CD, re-emphasize what they call the power of 3. If you can take your overall topics and bring them down into 3 topics, people seem to remember 3s. That's why I gave you PBS. 3 things. Look at any of the great speeches in history, and you'll find PBS. 3 topics, well, not PBS, but you'll find that they break down basically into 3 major ideas. And so you break them into groups of 3. And each of those groups of people help people to remember.
There was a question. I'm sorry.
So yes, you had a question first.
To me, there's a difference between giving a speech and giving a presentation. What do you see difference and nuances between the two?
Yes, in a way, because speeches tend to be more extemporaneous than a presentation. With a presentation, you have a standardized, perhaps a standardized script, a standardized PowerPoint presentation. You would need to be more on your toes in the speech than the script.
Now, see, I think the other
I think
way around.
that is it, because you
Yeah,
need to keep the people engaged. That's the trick, is to engage with the audience, and it's a hard one. That's why I was trying to come up with some things for the intro.
Two last questions.
Not a question, but a comment. I think one of the most effective things you can do, speech or presentation, is just be aware of your audience, and
That's right.
and watch, if the person is not really paying attention, maybe you kind of focus. I always have students who are, like asleep, and then I knew that I could go stand next to them and talk really loud, and they would wake up. Just be aware of where your audience is. If you can't, even from the PowerPoint, you can see it from when you're up there. When you're doing the presentation, you can see that Huffy's is talking to his neighbor when he shouldn't be. And so you can just sort of really focus and just watch your audience.
So we have one last question back.
It seems like the last few years we've been trying to strive towards consistency in the presentation and leave out personal stories. How can we reach a happy medium?
That's a good question.
Final objective is what counts. If you don't put the stories in or any little itty things in, is the audience getting it? And you can tell when you see their eyes. I can tell, I can see that I'm connecting with you as an audience because I can see your heads nodding, you're agreeing. I don't see anybody's head going like that. So, you're right, there is a fine line. You don't want to go too far.
That's why I would suggest putting time limits on it. If there's a time to share, say, you've got a minute, go, time it, you're done, wrap it up. Don't let it go on into side conversations. I thought maybe I was going to have chaos on my hands for a minute when I was up. Yeah.
To that point, I think all of us in the room have tried the spectrum of, how, I guess my ultimate question is, when you've got that person that is busting to tell you their story,
Right.
and we've had times where we've had to say, I'm sorry, I just don't have time for your story right now. But if you have a moment and you give somebody the latitude to tell a personal anecdote about what happened to them in the last election, and you find that person is just going on and on and on, can you give us a strategy or two of how to, without offending them, cut them off?
Right. Well, I would just preface it. I would preface it and say, we have a lot of material to cover. You have 1 minute to share, and then we have to move on. And when their minute is up, say, I'm sorry, your time is up. We need to move on. Thanks for sharing. And redirect.
Now, the very last thing that I want to say, and I meant to say this before, but I forgot until I heard it happening. I saw it right in front of my eyes. The verbal pause. When you're going along and you're listening to people, and you hear what they're saying, and they start to say, and then we continue listening, and they the verbal pause. Remember, I talked about the pause. Don't use a verbal pause, use a quiet pause. It's much more effective. And people think they need to do that verbal pause because they're afraid that people aren't going to be listening to them. But they will. You've got to watch the verbal pause. It all comes down to practice. Practice, practice. Well, as we say in Toastmasters, stage time, stage time, stage time. Being a good Toastmaster, I'll now turn it back over to our Presidente.
Thank you all for having us come this evening. I hope that you gained something from it. I encourage you all to come to our club. If you ever have an opportunity, it's a great club. 7 o'clock in the morning on Thursdays. Every Thursday morning we are at the Vineyard. You're always welcome to join us. It's a very dynamic group. We have over 30 members. You're just looking like, I like 2 hats like it's 7 o'clock in the morning. Okay, well, the invitation aside, thank you all for having us this evening.
I've only got 3 of my club cards left, but I'll leave them up here if anybody wants them.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.